Churchill College is part of the University of Cambridge, but it is also the National and Commonwealth Memorial to Sir Winston Churchill, Britain's most famous Prime Minister. Sir Winston Churchill came here just once, on the 17th of October 1959. He planted an oak tree and he made a speech setting out his vision for the college that was going to bear his name, which was that it should train scientists, technologists and engineers looking to the future, which it still does today. But just a few yards from the tree that he planted is the Churchill Archive Centre, which was purpose-built to house his papers, his archive. It exists thanks to the generosity of various American citizens who saw in it the potential to become the equivalent of one of their great US presidential libraries. The Churchill papers alone are some 2,500 boxes, an estimated 1 million items, chronicling Churchill's life from cradle to grave.
Hello everyone, and congratulations on reaching this final, especially in such a difficult and disrupted year. You are all winners already, and I don't envy the judges their task. My name is Alan Packwood, and I'm lucky enough to be the director of the Churchill Archive Centre here at Churchill College in Cambridge, which is where we would all have been gathering today if things had been more normal. The Churchill Archive Centre is one of the biggest repositories in the UK for modern personal papers, and we exist to preserve and present the raw material of modern history, including the archive of Sir Winston Churchill. And it probably won't surprise you all to know that that is a huge collection, an estimated 1 million items, which includes Churchill's drafts and speaking notes for his famous speeches and broadcasts. Churchill is, of course, widely considered to be one of our greatest public speakers. His words still get quoted and misquoted by politicians and celebrities, and I suspect you're all familiar with some of his most famous phrases, even if you did not know that they were by him. Phrases like, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. And give us the tools and we will finish the job." President John F. Kennedy praised Churchill for mobilising the English language and sending it into battle. And in 1953, Churchill was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for his contribution to both the written and the spoken word. But I think the important thing for you to know today is that this did not come easily. Churchill had to work hard to find the right words. Now, I'm not sure I should share this with a school's audience at all, but at school, he didn't really work at all. We have his school reports in the Archive Centre, and the one that's appearing on your screen now is from 1884, when he was aged just 9, and it's fairly typical. Under diligence, you may be able to see that it reads, "Conduct has been exceedingly bad. He is not to be trusted to do any one thing." And then at the bottom, the headmaster has written, "Very bad, is a constant trouble to everybody and is always in some scrape or other." And Churchill later wrote that where my reason, interest or imagination were not engaged, I would not or I could not learn. But he did have a good memory, and he did have an interest in English, winning a school prize for reciting Macaulay's Lays of Ancient Rome. Still, he was not considered bright enough to go to university, and it was only when he became an army officer that he really started to read more widely and to educate himself. And it was his father's death in January 1895 that acted as a real spur to him, because at that point, I think, he decides that he wants to emulate his father and to go into politics, to prove himself to his father's ghost. And for that, he needs two things. He needs fame and he needs fortune. His solution was to get himself transferred to as many dangerous places as possible, and then to write up his adventures as newspaper articles and books, using the power of words to earn a living, but also to raise his profile. And he became one of the highest paid war correspondents of his day, while still in his early 20s. He also started experimenting with public speaking. He read the speeches of his father and of the other great politicians of the day, and he started thinking about the devices that made for a good public speech, writing an essay called The Scaffolding of Rhetoric in India when he was just 22, which talked about, among other things, the need to capture the audience through the use of emotion, the power of analogies, and how an accumulation of argument building to a powerful ending was a way of really maximizing the impact of the speech. Now, Churchill got into Parliament at the age of just 25, but his early speeches did not always go well. On one mortifying occasion, when he was speaking without notes, he dried up and he simply couldn't remember what he was going to say next. Thereafter, he was careful to make sure that he was better prepared, speaking with the aid of notes. And those notes, of course, are one of the things that make the archives, that make his papers, his collection so strong, because the changes that you can see on those notes show the workings of Churchill's mind. You can see when he's adding something or when he's deleting something, and you can guess at why. Is this the result of some new piece of information that he's received? Is it because he doesn't like the way the words are sounding? Is it because he's correcting a factual mistake? And I think what these detailed and annotated notes show is how extremely thoroughly Churchill prepared. Little was actually left to chance. His preferred method of working was to dictate. His duty secretary would then take down his words on a state-of-the-art silent typewriter, and the first draft of the speech would then be produced as typescript, double-spaced for his comments. And then he would go through that typescript, making his corrections, annotations, and amendments, often in his Churchillian red pen. Here on the screen, you can see an early draft of his address to the joint houses of the American Congress, delivered at a key moment of the war just after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on the 26th of December 1941. And if you look at this text, you can see that his original dictation, his first draft, referred to the enemy being taught a lesson which will not soon be forgotten. And then you can see how he's gone back and changed it and strengthened it, so that it now reads that they were to be taught a lesson which they and the world will never forget. And you can see him here playing with the words and deliberately moving from the passive to the active voice. And an important speech like this might go through several further drafts. Only once it was complete would it then be taken away by the duty secretary and retyped at A5 size so that it would fit comfortably into his jacket pocket or his hand, and then tagged together so that he could not lose his place, and set out on the page in a new blank verse format that his office called speech form. And when you look at the speech in this format, laid out on the page like poetry or like Shakespearean verse, I think you can see straight away why he did it, because this layout gives him the rhythm, the pauses, and the emphasis. So here, for example, you can see his famous words of praise for the Royal Air Force in August 1940 at the height of the Battle of Britain. And by the time Churchill delivered his most famous speeches in that summer of 1940, he was 65 and he'd had 40 years of speaking to political audiences. So, he developed through experience, as I'm sure all of you will do as well. So what were the secrets of his success in terms of the oratory? Well, preparation, certainly, and we've already talked about that. But also, I think, personality. Churchill understood the importance of performance, of looking the part, of being distinctive, with his bulldog scowl, his bow tie, his omnipresent cigar, his eccentric wardrobe of hats. He was someone who couldn't possibly be mistaken for anyone else. He didn't try to look like the others. He brought his own unique character and distinctive personality to bear. And he does that not just through the visuals, but also through the way he delivers his speeches, even utilizing a lifelong speech impediment, which meant that he did not pronounce the letter S properly, and which led him to refer to the Nazis as Nazis. But he plays up his own speech impediment, and it's something, again, that makes his speeches identifiable and which makes his voice unique. So preparation, personality, but also finally confidence. Churchill made no secret of the fact that he was playing to the gallery. As a young man, he told his friend Violet Bonham Carter at an Edwardian dinner party that, "My dear, we are all worms, but I do believe that I am a glowworm." And of course, when you're delivering these speeches, you need that self-belief if you're going to take others with you. So what would Churchill's advice be to you today? Well, surely, first of all, to be yourselves and to be confident, and presumably to never give in. And if it doesn't work, well, then try again. His was a truly roller coaster career with all sorts of setbacks, but he didn't let that stop him. And as Churchill said, "In the course of my life, I have often had to eat my words, and I must confess that I've always found it a wholesome diet." I think we'll give him the last word. Thank you very much, and good luck.